So the question that we asked them was, how will we know when we get there? And that's a really difficult one to establish because as an organization, culturally they come from an engineering background. They're very numerate, and to look at quantitative ways would be their natural tendency. But what they felt here was that this was going to be a more qualitative thing. So some of the things that they came back with to our challenge of, so how are you going to know when you're there, would be things like, well, all the stakeholders have the same answer. We can tell the world that we're an organization that has ethical behavior at its core. So in other words, they'd be singing in harmony, at least if not the same tune. The third one was the answer to, is it the right thing to do, question mark, is yes. So this would be some self-challenge as an organization, say, is this the right thing to do, the decision that we're going to make? So they're bringing into full consciousness their decision-making process against a background of, is it ethical behavior or not? They would have regular review conversations to keep the whole thing alive. The metrics and the surveys that they would construct would give them some sort of quantitative result as well. And we looked at that a little bit, how that might look. Another one would be that they were comfortable in conflict. So this whole thing about creating a safe environment meant that they would actually be comfortable having some quite robust discussions with each other. They thought about having a happiness index. So some other organizations do this and ask their stakeholders how they're feeling about how things are going. Another point was that they would be happy to be vulnerable, which I'm not quite sure as I understand exactly what they meant, but I thought it was quite a shift from the conversation at the beginning of the day when there was this room, by the way, of 16, 17 people, of which only one was a woman, and she happened to be the executive assistant of the chief exec. Everybody else was male. So you can understand that there was quite an element, I believe, of testosterone in the room and quite a lot of bravado and machismo. So for them to come out and say, we're happy to be vulnerable, I think was a shift that was in the room. And I think that the last and perhaps the most impactful thing was the recognition that culture becomes the number one priority in the organization. So this brings a shift from profit being the number one to culture being number one. Of course, if you get the culture right, then the profit will follow anyway.